Hey everybody, it's Rob here. We just got the new patch notes for December 3rd for the PTR Season 7. There are a ton of buffs, a ton of changes, but also a lot of nerfs coming to the Spiritborn. I'm going to link the patch notes below. And again, this is releasing on Tuesday next week. Let's get into it. We're getting a ton of buffs here for serval instances. They also revealed the new Nightmare Dungeon rotations. We are getting extra chances for ancestral items to drop. We're getting a ton of changes on the way ancestral items work. They're going to roll a lot higher percentages and all these kind of things. We're getting a ton of Spiritborn class changes. So I think the first big thing is that Razor Wings is getting a massive update here. You're getting extra chances for Razor Wings. You are getting extra multipliers for Razor Wings. You're getting double damage for Razor Wings. So Spiritborn overall is looking extremely strong already. And we also know all the rank 5 effects for all the ultimates. So every ultimate starting on rank 5 is going to get an additional bonus. So there's a cool Thorns build, I believe, here on the Spiritborn. There's also like multiplicative scaling here for the Seeker. And I think the craziest one, the Devourer here, has 150% of healing received bonus as multiplicative poison damage. That might be pretty insane. The Hunter didn't really get a GG buff because it was already one of the strongest ones, so I don't really mind that. There's a ton of bug fixes though on the Spiritborn. So if we are looking at, for example, the shield, the viscous shield. So many people were asking me this about Spiritborn. So this is all the bug fixes coming to Spiritborn. The biggest one, obviously, viscous shield is getting a bug fix. Rod of Kapeleke with Banished Lord Talisman. The interaction is getting changed as well. You're losing a lot of damage there. That's for sure. They're fixing the redirected force, not doing a full damage scaling with your block chance anymore. And this will result in the Spiritborn doing like thousands and thousands less damage. They also did some positive bug fixes here with Quill Volley, rebounding that we've been using a lot, where it was not returning your feathers properly. They also fixed the bug where the damage resistance aura could be removed from the soil aspect. And then on top of this, there's been like a few more other changes here, but also like other buffs that has happened. One thing to point out was the resolve stacks. So the Spiritborn resolve stacks, you might remember those like plus 13, or if you bugged it, plus 18 maximum resolve stacks, are basically completely removed out of the game as a temporary. So you cannot get max resolve stacks on Spiritborn anymore. Instead, you're just getting like armor percentage, and that's not really doing all too much of anything, unfortunately. But either way, I think Quill Volley is still going to remain, obviously not 150, but it's going to remain still pretty strong build, I think. Best core skill. We're getting a couple cool ways with the poison, I think. And there's like a bunch of buffs to Thorns as well that could have potential that I want to try. But the main thing on Spiritborn is I want to see how strong Quill Volley still is. And I want to see how strong the new Razor Wings here is. Because like we're getting this double damage from the recipe too, alongside multiple new legendaries that can make it pretty brutal here and pretty strong. There's also a nerf coming to the evade build, as far as I understood it here. We'll see how it's gonna like, you know, affect the flash build. But what they are basically doing is they are changing the acceleration passive here to not give you like all those maximum evade charges. But they are making it better in terms of like the eagle damage that you can get from it, where you can essentially get this damage like not only for the next skill cast, but also for all the skills. So this is definitely a cool buff to the Quill Volley build. And obviously we'll see how all this is going to turn out. To my knowledge, the Jaguar main hall are going to be fixed. The double dipping and the Fell Soothsayer are also going to be fixed in terms of double dipping. So that's not going to be that crazy anymore. But still, I think Razor Wing is eating good. It's a cool build to play. And in terms of the resolve stacks, they do remove that temper. But there are some other ways that they added to basically gain that resolve. So you have the aspect of tenacity, where you can get resolve. And your resolve will basically overfill at maximum by 5 with this aspect. And I think they added another one here on one of the rings here. They reworked a ton of uniques as well with their stats. And you can also get another resolve maximum stacks with this one. So that could be pretty cool. So Auspicious is gone. So you're getting like 3 maximum resolve stacks that you can master work on this ring. I'm also looking forward to the Whoosh Nakpa, basically increasing the Spirit Hall potency. These ones might be pretty cool to combine with something like Toxic Skin or some of the other stuff. We'll test this all next week on the PTR. And Rod of Kepaleka, of course, is getting a big damage nerf and a bug fix with Banished Lords, with the Fury interaction, the resource interaction, but they're also giving it extra vigorous stacks now instead of velocity. You're not having the damage reduction anymore. I did some like napkin math, so in the end, Kepaleka, you're losing about triple damage, roughly. And you're losing like a ton of damage. It's like very hard to say, but overall, like you're at least losing like 100x, and then you're losing the double dipping, which is like 10x each. So you're losing like a multiple magnitudes of damage. It's very hard to say exactly how much damage is that you lose, but it is quite a bit. There are some cool things to make up for it, like here Bitter Medicine, for example, is also making poison builds more viable, now giving up to 40x to poison builds, and in general, the poison builds have been buffed pretty decently. There's also a ton of changes to the mercenaries here. They're also getting more buffs to the Obduk side that drops from the master working caches. They are buffing a ton of runes. You can see all the changes here. I don't think there's going to be some crazy stuff that's really going to change the meta much. But for example here, Overflow, Store Access Offering, like there's some pretty cool stuff here. The Flash build, if it still works, is getting a cool juice here from the Jar rune, because it now costs a lot less. So we'll be able to teleport a lot more with the Flash build if it still works. And yeah, some of the things here are basically getting a change here. And you need more for the Xal rune, for example, to get life. But if you have Overflow, you also get more life. And yeah, just you can read all these runes. I'm going to link the full patch notes on Wowhead below as well, because they already have these embeds, so you already know what the rune was doing before all these changes. So yeah, Spiritborn overall obviously expected nerfs to, or bug fixes to the top builds, but also then some cool things with the Razor Wings, and also I think with some poisons being pretty viable. Next would be the Barbarian. And here I've already been working like very slowly on a plan. I'm going to link that below. I think the new chest for the Barbarian here is going to be fantastic. Basically makes your Earthquake deal double damage. You have Hoda ranks, you get Hoda damage, and it gives you a great synergy between Hoda and Earthquakes, where your Hoda can trigger your Earthquakes. And similar to like the Jade Witch Dog in D3, basically deal all the Earthquakes damage instantly and consuming the Earthquake. So this might be really strong. And there are a ton of supporting items with this that I want to go over here. So there is the chest here that basically does a ton of damage already. Then you're getting a new aspect that has a 1.5x on Earthquakes, or double damage on a two-hander. So that's going to be pretty insane. There is a new weapon tempering that allows you to get the heavy hitter. And heavy hitter, I'll make a separate video about this, but this is probably the biggest change that we're getting. Heavy hitter usually used to be ultimates. And keep in mind, the Barbarian has 4 weapons, so you're getting like 6 ranks base, or 4 ranks base of heavy hitter, if you're augmenting this on a weapon. And the new heavy hitter is completely insane. The new heavy hitter buffs ultimate skills, Earthquakes, and also Dust Devils. So you're getting 15% multiplicative damage per rank, and there is a weapon temper on the barb for weapons. This is insane. This is literally like more than double damage for Whirlwind Barb and also for the Earthquakes. And we're not done. Like there is so many more things here going crazy with the Barbarian. Let's jump on top here again. We're gonna go to 1, and you can kind of see like this is already insane, and it's only gonna get a lot better from here. So we're gonna go down here to the skills. Hoda is getting a base damage buff. Hoda is also getting the rune buff. You might remember season 2 where Hoda was amazing because it was scaling with Fury. That scaling is now back. Hoda Barb is scaling its damage with Fury 3%. I don't know if this is a multiplier, and 3% crit for every 10 fury that you had when you cast it. So the Barb Nation is eating good. Not only is there Hoda, but there is also the Earthquake that we already got like a more than double damage, and there is a lot more coming. I'll make a separate video, but yeah, Mighty Throw, the snapshot is fixed, so you can't snapshot with the Mighty Throw weapon swaps. You can't snapshot the overpowers anymore. Kick is now becoming, it was already a core skill, but now it's also scaling damage with ranks. And Kick is not the only thing. Ground Stomp and also Rupture are also scaling damage with ranks. So previously you only got cooldown reduction if you had more kick ranks, so it wasn't worth it, even if you wanted to do a kick DPS build. And I already did a kick DPS build, and we're already hitting for like multiple billions of damage with overpower. So this is also going to be a build that I want to be cooking. And yeah, basically it's scaling with skill ranks now. Yeah, Mighty Throw got some buffs. Wrath of the Berserk, here are the rank 5 effects. So you pull in enemies, you knock them back, deal 200 damage. I don't think this one is too strong. But now here, Call of the Ancients. First of all, they buffed the damage to 30%. And now, while Call of the Ancients is active, 40% movement speed and 20% damage reduction from distance. There's Iron Maelstrom that got a cool buff, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And then here you can see Charge, Kick, Power Kick, Lunging Strike, and Rupture all scale their damage with skill ranks. And you can easily get like 20, 25 ranks. Basically, almost doubling, yeah, almost tripling some of their damages. More than double on a lot of these. So a Kick Barb and also Ground Stomp Barb could be pretty cool. Sorry, Ground Stomp is already increasing damage with ranks. So this is gonna be very nice. Heavy Hitter got a buff, we already talked about that. Defensive Stance. Slaying Strike now works for injured and for healthy enemies. That's gonna be a big buff. Then we have the Unbridled Rage actually doing double damage against injured enemies now. So you're gonna have a 90% X against injured. This, I think, got a heavy inspiration pretty much from the Hunter on the Spiritborn. Yeah, Walking Arsenal is also getting a buff, and now here we're coming to the crazy Earthquake buffs. So Executioner is scaling your Earthquake damage based on how much strength you have. So that is another offensive aspect that we will have to use. And I already calculated this very roughly on X here. So if you have 3000 strength, that's already an 8.5 times damage multiplier, making it extremely strong. So combined with Heavy Hitter, we're already looking at a 16x multiplier for Earthquakes. But that is not all. We're getting more than 16 times damage, because you can also, like, say, you know, you're also getting some bonuses from Slaying Strike and from some other stuff. But you're also getting even more bonuses from the aspect of Earthquakes. This was already increasing your damage, generic damage, but on top of this, this is also increasing your Earthquake damage, giving you even more damage. The same is true for the Bulkatos, also giving you even more damage on the aspect of Bulkatos. I think Earthquake Barbarian is going to end up like 20 times, maybe more, extra damage that it currently has. So Earthquake Barb is going to be the first build I'm going to play on the PTR most likely on Tuesday next week. Then another cool thing here for the Kick, we already talked about Kick a bit. There's another buff here for Kick, where you can basically use the Encrunching Wrath to get double damage with Kick after you spend Fury. And we already played a build with Banished Lords and Kick has a rune that spends all your Fury, so you can make a build where you kick, then you generate your Fury, then you kick again, and you'll already always get that multiplier. So on top of the double damage we get from skill ranks, we're getting another double damage from Encroaching Wrath. So we are already at like 8 to, I would say we are at like 10 billion per kick. So that could be strong, like 10 billion per kick baseline, and then we'll see how much or how often we can trigger it. But if we can trigger it like every 2 seconds, every 3 seconds, that's already like 3 billion DPS plus, which is more than enough to one-shot everything in T4. So that's going to be pretty good, I think. And then there's some more buffs here. One to point out here is the Ugly Bastard is getting even stronger. Now up to 100% double damage. And then some more good news. Bonebreaker is getting a buff up to 1.8 when you overpower to your ultimates. And Weapon Master here with the weapon switching, also 30% multiplicative damage to injured and healthy enemies. So right now it doesn't even have a multiplier, and they're actually adding one. That's pretty cool. Next is the Druid. And Druid, my friends, is also eating very good. He got a ton of buffs. Probably one of the most generic one is Blood Howl. Now instead of, now also it heals you, but it also gives you 25x as long as it's active. They are buffing the Druid throughout the board. The Druid got crazy buffs to the boons as well. And overall, I think it's going to be in a much better spot. There's so many buffs on the Druid. Like, it's probably the most buffed class. And I mean, it needed it, right? Like, there's some cool builds here.
So, right, because you can imagine, like, launching in.
You may have seen this one here where basically your Hurricane, and Hurricane is already one of the strongest builds on the Druid, gets even more buffs here with the aspect of Wolf Reigns, where your wolves basically inherit these Hurricanes. So these are going to be pretty cool and pretty strong. And there's a ton of like supporting legendaries for this. You're also getting Tempest Roar buffs, and Warnado is going to be looking good. Mjolnir is getting a buff, and here probably the biggest one and most generic, Heightened Malice, that used to only work in AoE, now works for one enemy, so that means you can get the benefit from Heightened Malice on the boss, plus you're getting even more multipliers if you have more enemies. Survival Instinct got a buff, Ancestral Guidance, which I thought was already one of the best Druid legendary nodes, is getting yet another buff to scale your ultimate damage. And I think we've seen the ultimate damage. Was it not Pulverize? It was Petrify, right? Yeah, Petrify. Here, Petrify is basically letting your ultimate reset all your cooldowns. Cataclysm, big DPS. Lacerate, also more DPS. There are a ton of good changes. I think the strongest builds on Druid probably going to be Warnado, Hurricane, and a Pulverized Druid with those like crazy Paragon buffs and Spiritborn buffs. I think Druid has definitely some stuff to look forward to. The Necromancer is getting some cool stuff to its Bone Spirit. This used to be one of my favorite builds. I think Bone Spirit is going to be super nice. Bone Spirit itself is getting a buff. The rune is getting a buff. I think the Unique is also getting a buff. The Deathless. You can read all these patch notes. There's also a ton of buffs to the Blood builds. Yeah, here, Deathless Visage is getting a massive crit damage buff. And this was already like one of the best helms for the Bone Spear. And finally, it might be able to compete with some of the Bone Spirit stuff. So I'm really looking forward to try Bone Spear on the PTR. Keep in mind, when you're logging on into the PTR, you can actually play or copy your current builds, but you also have this boosting, the dancing boosting vendor, that also allows you to basically boost your character. So I think, yeah, Necro is also getting a ton of cool stuff here to shadow builds, Bloodbath, Overpower. I think blood builds in general are going to be pretty nice. And in some news here, they're also fixing the Necromancer Master Working Exploit. So it is very weird to me that they are not fixing the Master Working Exploit on the live server. So Spiked Armor is getting removed. That's the way they are fixing it. And there's another thing from the tributes. The Kurast Undercity is also finally getting fixed. If you have tried to farm Optoxide, you may have encountered this problem that just sometimes, like every other run, is just not dropping any rewards because it's bugged. And for some reason, they are waiting until end of January to fix this in the live game. I would much rather see this being like a hotfix that is applied to the game directly, like the Masterwork exploit, the, like it's a core function of the game. Like the Undercity doesn't even work properly because oftentimes you don't even get rewards. So I really don't understand like why this is why we have to wait until January, end of January, before this getting a fix in the live game. So I think that was a bit weird. I was like, definitely, but they're going to be fixing it. It's just going to like, take 2 more months from now, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, we'll see. Then there is the Rogue. The Rogue also got some buffs. There's not really like that crazy stuff on Rogue. So we're going to like mostly skip over the Rogue. There's definitely some cool things here. And I think the Rain of Arrows could be pretty nice. And just some ranged Rogue stuff. Then we have the Sorcerer. And the Sorcerer, instead of getting a buff, like it got nerfed, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know, like we'll see how it's going to end up with, but most of the generic stuff on Sorg is getting nerfed. So I think Sorg is taking yet another L. Fireball doesn't like apply burn anymore in the enchantments. I think we could need like a full rework to the enchantment system because it's pretty bad. Devouring Blaze also is nerfed. It only works for pyromancy skills. So before it was generic buff to everything, so you could play Ball Lightning, you could play, you know, other stuff with Devouring Blaze, but now it only works for fire skills. And then to make it even worse, on top of all this, the Conjuration Mastery, the passive that was basically carrying most Sorc builds, also got nerfed to only apply to summons. So before it gave you generic damage, and now it only gives you summoning damage. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on with the Sorc. There is some minor things here for Ball Lightning, and there are also new items for Ball Lightning. So we might see like Ball Lightning being like at least somewhat cool, but like Ball Lightning is losing Devouring Blaze. It's losing its way to apply Burn Easy with the enchantment, and it's also losing the Conjuration Mastery. And then it's gaining like some minor buffs. So yeah, I would not be that excited to play a Sorcerer. Like there's some paragon buffs here, some good changes as well. But I really don't understand like why the Sorcerer had to be nerfed. I don't really see like why that happened. But it is what it is. And then like yeah, here we have the rotation for the Nightmare Dungeons, instances updates, loot updates. That's pretty cool. And yeah, just a ton of bug fixes. They also make like a lot of the stuff here class specific, where you can't go on other classes to temper your items anymore. They clearly don't want this in the game. So they are basically making some of the temper recipe only apply to specific classes. I think this is like a cool, a good change at least. Because like there was a lot of shenanigans going on with that. And they're giving a lot of skills to summoning tag. For example, Call of the Ancients gets the summoning tag and a ton of other ones to just benefit from additional multipliers. Infernal Hordes compasses, they finally stack. They stack to 99. So you know these like red keys, yeah, Rip Mekuna, F. These red keys that were like not stacking at all, now they're actually stacking to 99. But so that's gonna be pretty nice. And then yeah, some additional tooltips and like basically a ton of bug fixes. Here you see the Mighty Throw, like quadruple penta snapshot that people were doing. I think the Air of Perdition snapshot is not mentioned here, so people might still be snapshotting that. And there's just like a ton of more like bug fixes basically. And then keep in mind, guys, like all this is coming next week on Tuesday. We're gonna jump in, probably play Earthquake Barb. Again, I already have an Earthquake Barb planner. The planner is updated to some degree. It's gonna be updated even more with the recent patch notes, so I'm gonna link that below as well. And we also have the seasonal powers in here already. And we also have the sockets. Like obviously these don't really have like much tooltips yet, but you can already go through here and start cooking if you like to with some of those seasonal powers. So this is all coming on top of this, the seasonal powers, the rune changes, the new occult gems that you're farming at the Tree of Whispers, and you're also getting the green Helltide again. That was a fan favorite in Season 2, so we're getting a different color of Helltide. And this is basically the headhunt where you get these occult gems from the, like in combination from the Tree of Whispers. So there's definitely a couple of cool things to look forward to. I'm definitely going to be playing the PTR for like 2 days. And then right after, guys, Path of Exile 2 is launching on Friday. So the PTR is releasing on Tuesday. We're going to play like, okay, 3 days PTR. And then on Friday, guys, Path of Exile is launching. We're going to log in there and maybe going to blast a Titan or a Monk. I haven't really fully decided yet. But yeah, Earthquake Barb is eating good, guys. I think Earthquake Barb is going to be pretty strong. And we'll definitely test that first thing on the PTR. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you enjoyed the overview, my friends. Again, patch notes will be below. Take care. Easy. GG. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.